Hello, everybody, and welcome to this brief lecture on pre-Islamic Arabia. Here we're going to be looking at the land, the space, the place where Islam comes from. And hopefully, we'll be able to make some connections between the religion itself and the place it comes from. To what extent is Islam a product of the culture and the space from which it comes? So let's get started. So one of the best ways to understand a thing is to understand where it comes from. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at where Islam originated. And using this map, these are all Muslim majority countries. And Islam is going to start right about here in the middle. And you see that it radiates out up into the Asian continent and all around Northern Africa, and also over here into Indonesia, and then here's Bangladesh. We'll get to this later, but I just want you to notice that from here, it then goes all the way out to the surrounding areas. So there's that sort of like geographic connection as Islam is going to spread. Now, if we look at the Arabian Peninsula, it's right here in the middle. It's just northeast of Africa, southwest of Asia, west of India, and southeast of Europe. And one of the first things you'll notice about it is how brown it is. And that's because it is very, very dry. In fact, the Arabian Peninsula is about 95% desert. So it's a pretty harsh environment that Islam grows up in. It is located in the Middle East. So if we're looking at a world map, it's kind of right in the middle there, as I said, just northeast of Africa, and sort of connects the African continent with the Eurasian continent, sort of in the crossroads there. If you're looking at it modern day, most of it is made up of the country of Saudi Arabia, but there's also Oman, there is Qatar, it's just south of Iraq and Syria, and then you see Iran up there in the northeast of Saudi Arabia, and then here's Egypt, so you have Africa just on the other side of the Red Sea to the left there. So the Arabian Peninsula, as I said, it's 95% desert. It's a really harsh environment to survive. And the people that were surviving there are a group that we call the Bedouin, and the Bedouin are made up of a lot of different tribes. And those tribes are mostly like family or kinship based. So there might be a particular family that is going to sort of head this group and make sure that they're settling disputes within the tribe and the group, and also helping with like military campaigns. Well, what were they mostly fighting over? Well, if you look at the landscape, you might think, well, it doesn't look like there's a ton of water there. So oftentimes there was a lot of disputes over wells, and so the Quraysh oftentimes would be nomadic, so they would be moving around, either because they're raising flocks or because they are moving goods from place to place as part of trade, or they're seeking out new sources of water or taking over new sources of water. So the Bedouin were the dominant groups of people that lived on the Arabian Peninsula. Lots of different tribes and lots of fighting between the tribes in this very harsh environment. Now, if you look here, the Arabian Peninsula is sort of bottom middle of this map. And in about 600, you'll see that we have a couple of different names on the Arabian Peninsula. And these are some of the different tribal groups that were in the Arabian Peninsula. So one that's going to become important in just a little bit here called the Quraysh. And here is also where the city of Mecca is. Now, this map is important because you'll see the Arabian Peninsula broken up into, controlled by a few different groups. But it's right in between two major empires of the time. There's the Sassanid dynasty, which is one of many dynasties that make up what we typically will call the Persian Empire. So even though different families might rule this area, we will oftentimes call this the Persian Empire, this area. And then, so there's the Persian Empire here, and then over here, there's the Byzantine Empire to the left. The Byzantine Empire is basically a continuation of the Roman Empire because Rome falls. And in the East, so like Greece and Turkey here, the Roman Empire continues on. It's just, they will still call themselves Roman, only they're speaking Greek. So it's just a little bit of a different empire, but you can think of it as the eastern half of what was the Roman Empire. And these two empires do not like each other. And so there's a lot of fighting over the years, and they've sort of worn each other out and they're kind of weakened. And so that is going to be the state of these two big empires as Islam begins to emerge from right here in what is Mecca. And it's going to spread all the way around the Arabian Peninsula, and then it's going to encounter these two major empires. So we have here, there's Persia, and then Byzantine Empire was up here in the upper left. And this map is showing us trade routes that are going across the Eurasian continent, and how the Arabian Peninsula really is a crossroad of a lot of different major trade routes. So if you go down here where there's this compass rose, this is connection to the Indian Ocean. So all of the Indian Ocean trade if it's going to be able to come up into Europe, it might come up the Red Sea to be able to then be connected to the Nile here. So you have a lot of Indian Ocean trade. Up here in the upper right-hand corner of your screen, that is where the Silk Road is coming in, all with goods all the way from China. And so that trade network is coming in and meeting up on the Arabian Peninsula. And then goods can come up in here into the Mediterranean Sea and go to North Africa or into Europe. So Mecca, which is right in the middle here, is really at the crossroads of all of these trade networks. So it's sort of primed to connect. So anything that comes out of Mecca can very quickly connect to other parts of the Arabian Peninsula and the Middle East and Africa as a whole. So in Mecca, Mecca was a major trade center, as you saw at that crossroads of trade. And there was a group called the Quraysh that I mentioned earlier that controls a lot of the trade that's happening in Mecca. And by controlling the trade, I mean they're helping to settle disputes, they're helping to provide protection to make sure that people are safe and that people can feel safe, like they can easily trade here without having to worry about their goods or their wares. So the Quraysh are sort of the major players, and there's a significant figure that's going to come out of the Quraysh named Muhammad that's going to become a pretty big deal, as he is going to help to start the Islamic religion. So the Quraysh are controlling a lot of the trade here in Mecca, and not only that, but they're also in charge of local religion. In Mecca, they're housed this building called the Kaaba, which is the Arabic word for cube. And the Kaaba, before 600, used to house, it was like a shrine that housed a lot of icons and idols and statues that were all associated with local religions. So each of those tribes that I mentioned before might have their own like kinship-based deities or gods, and they would house the icons of these in this building. So as people are coming to Mecca to trade, they're also coming here to worship. And so the Quraysh are sort of in charge of managing all of that and being in control to make sure that everybody feels safe, like they can both trade and that they can worship their gods.